Health, and it was released last week as a broad concept, and the measure was it's a $3.9 billion plan. It raises fees, just sort of the broad overview. It raises the fee on fuel. They're referring to it as a road usage charge. We were anticipating that. It does so incrementally, 2 cents in the first year and goes up to 8 cents by year 4, and then has an indexing beyond that plan, or beyond that time. I should mention the plan is an 11-year sort of total look, but all the fees and such continue indefinitely. So the foundation of it is this 2 cent incremental road usage fee. It also includes a fee on diesel that starts out actually at 6 cents and moves up to 8 cents in 1 cent increments in just a couple of years. So it immediately jumps up. It has a fee on electric vehicles that is $9. At present, electric vehicles pay a registration fee of $50, $38 of which goes to the state HUTF. And this proposal increases the fee to $9 with an incremental increases up to ultimately $40 by year 4. And then it also has some fees on various delivery services, including on Lyft and Uber, sort of the commercial, what they refer to as transportation network companies, on a per ride basis. At 30 cents per ride, wherever you are, regardless of distance. And then it also has a fee on transportation or delivery services. So they are wanting to attach an additional 25-cent fee on to any delivery that comes as a consequence of your purchase online, or even in-city delivery type of service. So if you're picking up, so this would apply to an Uber Eats, but it would apply to the Home Depot that you have someone deliver some sort of service to you, or Office Depot, for instance. So any type of delivery would have a 25-cent additional trip charge on it that would flow, and that actually generates quite a bit of money, approximately $1.2 billion over that 10-year period. And think that then they're exploring taxi fee, rental car fee, and a few other items. So that's the larger funding component of the plan. And then there are the spending components that we dig into here in large part, or I try to provide some perspective on some of the concerns that come from some of the spending components. But the spend is largely state HUTF, local share of the HUTF. They maintain the allocations, which is something we encouraged them to do, and most of our partners did so, encourage that continued allocation. But it also drives monies into what's referred to as the Mobility and Mitigation Options Fund, which is a CDOT fund for mobility and offsets of greenhouse gas climate change impacts, as well as a non-attainment fund, which would be additional dollars in the Front Range and in our neck of the woods to add additional supplemental funds for further reductions in greenhouse gas emissions and different additional mitigation projects. And then it flows the majority of the delivery fee, those additional fees beyond the gas and diesel fee. It flows funds to 3 new enterprises, one each in the Department of CDOT, CDPHE, and the Colorado Energy Office. And Colorado Energy Office receives the bulk. All of those new enterprises relate, and their spend is related to electrification in different capacities. And and we'll talk a little bit about some of the potential challenges with that. So that's the broad scope of it. Again, in a review of it, we've seen certainly there were some positives that were somewhat surprising and encouraging. Package size was a lot smaller than I anticipated. It really probably best reflects sort of the current conditions, and that was economic conditions, and that's good. But with that smaller package size comes yet smaller allocations because of the spread and the broadening of priorities. So you'll see that the actual dollars flowing into the state system, for instance, is somewhat nominal from the new fees themselves. So as I mentioned, HUTF allocation formula is respected. It flows the EV fees through the HUTF, which is great. So it has some positive attributes, let me say that. But the concerns, I will point out just a few. And again, I will share this document with you all later. The concerns largely center around the state portion of the funds. One, there's really the general fund component, they talk about $800 million. It does not, it's a bit of a double counting. Those general fund dollars that they're touting as funding for transportation in the state system are dollars that had previously been committed under 267. And in reality, that's half of the amount that had been committed under 267 on an annual basis. And so that's problematic. And they're intended to fund the COPs. And so there's a continuation of the COPs, but again, it's a bit disingenuous about how the general fund dollars are flowing and the amount of money. So that's a place where we will be, pushing back. The other piece is that as a consequence of that those lower numbers, CDOT actually starts in the hole, which is not a good thing. And then when you look at the actual new dollars that flow into CDOT, it is so small. So you see this 35 million, 70. These are approximate numbers. We have not yet seen their spreadsheets and how the actual monies flow. We've asked for that. This is based upon some past spreadsheets I've received from CDOT and anticipated numbers, but the numbers are relatively small from the new fee component. This isn't the general fund, this is the new fees and what flows to the state highway system. Again, you would expect to see a larger share. It amounts to approximately 26% of the total take going into the state highway system. That seems a little low. I'm being facetious. The other part is there's, I think, some real lack of equity in the actual application of the fees themselves. You have, as I mentioned, 2 cents incremental uptick in in the gas tax fee, but then you also have, you see diesel jumping up at 6 cents and EVs at $9 in the first part. If you do the math, diesel vehicles are paying $36 first year, EV 9, and cars using gas approximately $9. So there's some inequity, and I think, and the rural folks are feeling are not real pleased with this, because of course you have our agricultural implements, diesel pickup trucks and the like, who are more utilized in the rural parts of Colorado. So this is going to be a challenge, and I think it's a fair question about real equity for payers on the road, and whether that's reducing the diesel side or upticking the other component, particularly the EV side. I think is there's some real question as to whether the EV piece will ultimately be sufficient to replace the gas tax if their goals really come to fruition. So it's not future-proof in my mind. There's no financing option in the plan. And these new enterprises, I think, are truly vulnerable to legal challenge, because there's some disconnect I see in their who's paying them and who the beneficiaries are of the actual expenditure side of it.
Sandra, go back to that. You said there's no financial option in the plan?
There's no what?
Financial, like how they're going to pay for it in the plan?
Oh, no. I'm sorry if I misspoke. No, on the new enterprises, there's no related link between the payer and where the dollars are spent. So the payers are these delivery fees and the use of the road, but the beneficiary or where they're spending all the funds in these enterprises is on electrification, infrastructure, fleet replacement. So things that aren't directly connected to the roadway, which is where and how the dollars are collected. So I think those enterprises are vulnerable to some legal challenge. And so again, we'll dig into that. We have a meeting with when I say we, the Way Forward group that we've been a part of, and quite frankly, driving a lot of the discussion internal. We are meeting with leadership and the sponsors of the proposal next week to really dive into questions and to get a whole lot of clarity. I had a lengthy conversation with Shoshana Liu on Sunday morning, and she provided some clarity around some of these pieces, but we're going to dive in more deeply with the sponsors. And I think we're all committed to trying to find a solution here, but as it's presently structured, I would suggest that this doesn't get to where we need to be. So I will end there. And again, I will share this document with everyone and more to come. The other piece I wanted to mention is, and I'm not going to use the PowerPoint, just so you know, it's agriculture worker rights bill. Last week there were the bill hearing happened, and we offered comment in that hearing. It came out somewhat amended, but not to the satisfaction of the agricultural groups. We have a lot more work to do. Jamie and I, with input from Bill, met with Mary Young earlier this week. She is a co-sponsor of the measure in the House. I would suggest that she was very receptive, very open to the changes, any changes, and to understanding better why the ag community operates in a very different fashion than most every other industry out there. And so consequently, the approach that is taken within this ag bill is not appropriate. So the ag folks have attempted to count to get to a full kill position. I mean, they're opposed, but they've been counting votes to determine if they can actually kill the bill in the Senate. They've determined that's not likely and viable. And so they are in a full-on amend mode, and have a friend, if you will, in Carrie Donovan, who's the chair of the Senate committee, Ag Committee. She is carrying that water. She is uncomfortable voting no altogether, even though she understands how problematic it is. She's running for Congress, so she has all these other considerations. Anyway, so they are going to dive deep into amendments on this bill, and the hope is, or the ask then on the House side and of the Mary Young, is to hold the line on any of the improvements that are made to the measure on the Senate side. We'll also ask the question of Mary, and we didn't during our conversation, to perhaps pull her name off the bill. There are a couple of members who are in the House side who are actually pulling their name from the bill because it went much farther than they were led to believe it would be. So she didn't indicate that to us in terms of her expectation of the bill, but we'll have that conversation. We have promised to follow up with her as well. The public option bill was introduced, and it is a measure that we will take a deeper dive look at next week. I've been receiving information from various folks, summary information, and we'll get that out to you early on. This is a far more complex issue than a lot of the others, and we have some experts in this space who can share a lot more detail. Steve has his group that is is operating, and so his perspective and that which he brings to the table will be good. The public option is going to elevate in its presence real quick. Again, it was just introduced, but we'll begin to see it ramping up. There's actually, its first bill hearing is on Friday, and we don't have a position on it, so we're not weighing in at this point, but we'll dive into it at our board meeting next week.
Hey, Sandra, today the CHA Spark Committee is meeting, and I know that they're asking for community business-minded support. So that's something that we probably should weigh in on pretty soon.
Yeah. The Denver Chamber, a number of the other chambers are, if they haven't taken positions one way or the other. I know the Denver Chamber has taken a position to oppose. A number of other groups are opposing, but then there are a host of other organizations who are in process. They have the motion or the issue in motion, and like we are. So we'll bring it next week and dive into it. Should be a lively discussion, or not, or maybe it's straight up. I'm not going to presume anything. The E-Trip is the measure, the regulatory measure that is pending before the AQCC, and requires, it has shifted from when we started paying attention to it a few months ago, when it was applicable to 250 to employers who have 250 employees. It has downshifted to 100 employees, in capturing, I think it's approximately 2,500 employers in the Front Range throughout the affected area, which is the non-attainment areas, if you will. There had been 800, so it was a pretty broad expansion by dropping that to 100. There is now talk of doing a similar E-Trip requirement mandate statewide, and we just learned of that this week. Again, whether we were affected one way or the other by the program, but now there's talk of moving it to a full statewide program, which is pretty remarkable. There have been listening sessions throughout, or for the last couple of weeks, active participation. We're encouraging our business members to do that. Anne and her team have done great outreach to folks, and all the chambers have been doing outreach to encourage participation. We know one of the primary asks, if you will, of the regulators is, keep this voluntary. As a mandate, that presents a tremendous amount of problems. And if you're going to go down and provide recommendations, if you will, then make it mandatory and see what sort of behavior modifications are going to naturally occur as a consequence of the COVID response. And so that's certainly one of the key pieces. The other argument that is elevated and wholly relevant is the sort of affected, disadvantaged communities who have more limited either access to alternative modes of transportation, or different types of family circumstances that make being compliant difficult. So there's it's been a little surprising how, even though there's an uptick in the amount of participation in listening sessions, I've been a little surprised at not hearing as much, and particularly in the Denver metro area. I think we're seeing a lot more activity up here than I've seen coming out of the Denver metro area. So more to come. This is a rule unfolding over the course of several months. We won't see the actual rule. I think it's May, and then they will begin a formal regulatory rulemaking through the course in August, I think it is, Tari. You want to, yeah. So we've got some time to continue to influence this and gin up more engagement on the measure. So, but it is certainly problematic. And I know Joe Rowan is working this for the for the Fort Collins Chamber. So things are starting to uptick in terms of momentum behind it, which is great. As I mentioned, the governor and leadership, and it's both Democrat and Republican leadership, are conducting regional listening sessions on the on regions' recommendations, suggestions, requests of how to spend the state portion of the federal stimulus dollars that they are receiving, which is approximately $3.9 billion. And it's notable, and so we haven't gotten word on when we are, our region is scheduled to be heard. Their first meeting is Pueblo, but waiting to see what the schedule is for the overall, all the hearings. Notable that leadership, the Dem leadership indicated that they don't intend to spend much, if anything, of these particular dollars on infrastructure, that they are awaiting the larger infrastructure plan to come forward, and so consequently don't feel that it's necessary to spend portions of this funding on infrastructure. So that's notable. The other part is, as I've mentioned in previous meetings, the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund in Colorado is a potential recipient of these federal funds, and that can help dramatically on a premium tax. And so that's a place where, when we visit as a board next week, I think we'll discuss where we might want to push with respect to how these dollars are spent. And that seems to be high on the list of places where we would encourage these dollars to be spent. But we'll discuss other places that are options for these one-time dollars. And then lastly, the various labor bills. So 176 is the really challenging Protecting Opportunities and Workers' Rights Act bill that we took a very strong position to oppose last week. And it was scheduled for hearing today. It has been delayed, I believe, until the 1st. I think we just saw a notice. Is that right, Tara? Yeah, the 1st. So we've asked, is David Zwizzler on the phone? We've asked David if he would represent the NCLA in that discussion. He's awaiting word from his employer to see if that's something that he can do. I don't know if we still don't know. So if David can't do it, we will find another very capable person, but probably not as great as David. So we're hoping that he'll be able to join us, but we'll have representation there and so to speak out. So that's a really critical one. We continue to hear word of the introduction of a tax bill. We're awaiting that coming from Senator Chris Hansen and some others. They're continue to rifle through the myriad of tax credits and incentives that are out there that they want to rein in order to fund more fully the education sector and K-12 in particular. So we're still awaiting that. So more to come. It just doesn't stop. So I'm going to stop there. And again, it's good to see everyone. If anyone has any quick comments before we.
Sandra,
yeah.
This is Steve. Do you have the bill number for the public option?
13. I had it. The 12. I'm sorry, I don't.
It is House Bill 1232.
32. I know. I'm like 1222, 1322.
Thank you.
I had the numbers. Yeah. So.
Carol and Steve Olson, Carol Salter. I'd ask you two, and also Jesse. I think he had to drop off the call. But let's try to chat about this bill. The four of us. Sometime before our meeting next week, just so we have a good opinion about it. And I may reach out to others on our executive committee for the healthcare working group, Craig and Carol Plock, Yvonne.
Yeah, that would be great to have that input.
I don't have anything good to say about it. Just to let you know.
Yeah, I understand, but you know, we need to know the why and the wherefore too. So
Right.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. It's just getting good this session. Things are just getting good. It's just coming at us.
what is your definition of good?
Yeah, no, that's right. It's just getting bad, worse and worse, I guess.
Active is what you're saying.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. So
Good is a lot going on.
yeah, absolutely. So we'll get more information to you on the public option. Look for the transportation detail that I sort of shared a little bit here. We've taken our bill positions. We're providing ongoing updates to our legislators. At next week's meeting will be our monthly meeting with legislators on the front end of the meeting. So we'll talk about, I certainly want to talk about the agricultural rights bill, bring them back up to speed again, because the bill is going to be amended. I think reinforcing yet again the need to get that to a good place. So we'll have a few of those measures that we'll want to be sure to highlight for the legislators, and we'll go from there. So it's good to see you all this morning. Have a fantastic day. If there's anything else, Steve?
I don't think so. Good meeting. Amanda, I want to make sure, did you get that? I sent you that information that Johnny was referring to in the email that he sent to me.
Yeah, that's big.
Did you get that, Amanda?
Yeah, and what Steve is referring to, and he alluded to this in our transportation subcommittee on Friday. His firm, along with another firm, have submitted
Johnny's firm. Yeah,
Johnny's firm, and Rodas are indicating their intention to submit a formal. Right? Is this the best way to put it, Johnny? To submit a formal unsolicited bid to CDOT to cover.
It has been submitted. It was submitted last Tuesday.
Okay, so they have submitted an unsolicited bid to CDOT for the full funding of the gaps in the North I-25 corridor, so segment 5 and some other sort of gaps. And this would be a public-private partnership, so they would assume effectively ownership of the road. It's really, it's exciting. I'm pleased to say the NCLA was helped facilitate the introduction and introduction of the corridor to Rodas. We'll take a look at it in more detail, and certainly continue to encourage CDOT to be open to that type of solution for this corridor as dollars are continue to be stretched thin.
And Rodas only wants to take over the managed lane. They don't want to take over the entire roadway system.
Oh, okay. Now that makes sense.
So the proposal is both ways, maintenance and operation, or just the funding of the managed lane and the operations and management of that.
Got it. Thank you for that clarification. That's important. So we'll dig in.
Amanda, the message I sent to you had that attachment that Johnny was talking about, and there are 4 slides with that. So if we could be prepared to show those next week too, when Johnny discusses this, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. We'll plan on having a more formal presentation from his group as well. So that's what we know. Okay. Well, it's good to see you all. Thank you. I think we try to do these in a half an hour and in and out and begin your day. So great to see you. And I don't think we have anything else, Steve, for the board to continue.
No, we're good.
Okay, great.
Thanks,
Thanks all for joining.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.